Welcome to the Altered Call podcast. Today we will be discussing the book of Ecclesiastes. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. My name is Pillischafske. I believe in unity. I believe in aggressive rounding, and I believe that you are uniquely created to reflect God's glory in the world. Everyone that has participated in any of my small groups knew that this episode was coming. Ecclesiastes is one of my favorite books of the Bible. It is fair to say that this book has shaped my faith and outlook on life more than any other book. You may find that surprising, especially if you've ever taken the time to struggle through the book in detail. But I honestly find it to be the most practical book that I have ever studied. While many other books of the Bible point towards wisdom in a very abstract sense that requires extrapolation and context to help you navigate your life, Ecclesiastes addresses the problem of life itself and gives specific direction on what to do about it. Let's start with the most confusing part of the book, Ecclesiastes 1:2. This is translated many different ways, but most commonly as either meaningless, meaningless, or vanity of vanities. Regardless, if you take it at face value, then nothing matters and we can all move on with our lives. Obviously, the book does go on, so what is the author trying to communicate here? I believe that the author isn't saying that everything is meaningless, but that the meaning of things cannot be known. Ultimately, he will point to two main factors that contribute to this problem: variance and death. Between those two indomitable forces and our limited perception of the world, it is hard to know for certain what matters and what does not. This is the hypothesis or problem that the author is exploring in detail as the book progresses. In planning this episode, I considered going straight through the text, but I found that to be too difficult to navigate in a rational way. The text does make sense, and I encourage you all to read it for yourself, but it does not follow the structure of an argument that we would make in modern times. It hops between topics and even changes narrative styles midway through in a way that would make it cumbersome to translate to this medium. So instead, I'm going to explore the main themes. The book begins by exploring the pursuits of pleasure and wisdom. The author subjected himself to both and found neither to be the solution. The topic of pleasure largely ends here, but the topic of wisdom is brought up throughout. The author clearly believes that wisdom is something to be attained. He even switches regularly into a writing style similar to the one found in Proverbs, where he gives specific wise advice, only to admit in the end that wisdom also isn't the solution. He does admit during the exploration that the ability to enjoy your life is a gift of God, and given the inability to know what matters, that it is better to enjoy the process than to be miserable. After this short exploration, he moves on to what I'm going to call the moral problem of variance. We live in a world where inputs and outputs are meaningfully unstable. Let's say that two people start businesses. They put in the same amount of work, use the same best practices, and manage the entire process well. Ultimately, one becomes a millionaire and the other goes out of business. This is, in a strict sense, unfair. Another example would be the amazing Christian man that gets cancer and dies at an early age, leaving behind a devastated young family, while a violent criminal lives to old age in relative peace. This is also unfair. The problem here is that the world doesn't work the way that we want it to. As people, we want to see good things rewarded and bad things punished. But that isn't consistently how the world works. This is summed up well in Ecclesiastes 9:11. Again I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to the skillful, but time and chance happen to them all. So is it a waste of time to be intelligent or wise or skillful? No. All of these things will help, but none of these things will be enough to protect you. If you are the fastest runner, then it is extremely likely that you will win the race. Your skill has ensured that you have a high chance of victory. But what if you trip, or get a cramp, or get in a car wreck on the way to the event? In those instances, your skill no longer matters because variance, or bad luck as we would call it in these circumstances, has won the day. Your skill no longer matters. Now, you may be skillful enough to overcome the trip or the cramp or the car accident. Maybe. Extreme levels of skill can insulate you to a high degree from variance. This is most easily seen in relation to money. If you have $100 to your name and you have a car repair, then things are going to get tough. If you have $10,000, then the car repair is no longer a crisis, but maybe a home repair puts you in the same spot. If you have $1 million, then maybe it takes something the size of a lawsuit to put you in a tough spot. In a sense, the person with more money has a higher degree of protection, but no amount of money is enough to make you safe, if only because of the other problem that Ecclesiastes brings to bear. The final topic that it addresses is death. Regardless of how good or bad we are, regardless of how wise, regardless of our faith, regardless of our wealth, we will all die. You don't get to protect yourself from this, and in the face of death, all of our skill, wealth, wisdom, and intelligence mean nothing. We simply disappear from the world the same as anyone else. So we live in a world where the outcomes are highly variable, and it can all end at any point. What do we do? When I was playing blackjack, there was a particular hourly rate that our system would generate. Think what should happen. And then there was a massive degree of variance around the actual result. What did happen? Blackjack in the short term is driven by variance, so it's extremely common to play a winning game for many hours and lose large sums of money. What do you do? Well, if you have a winning system, the answer is easy. You keep playing. Now, over that same time frame, you could win quite a bit more than you were supposed to win. What then? You keep playing. If you have a winning system, your options are to make that system better, keep playing, or both, because in the long run, you will end up winning. If you have a losing system, you can either convert it to a winning one, or you should quit and cut your losses. How does this relate to our lives? As humans, we like to think that we understand how the world works, but in reality, we don't have a clue. If you are successful, how much of that is skill and how much of it is luck? If you aren't successful, how much of it is a lack of skill and how much of it is luck? We don't know. That's the problem. We will never know with certainty how much of the successes or failures in our life are attributable to the things that we have done or mere chance crossing our path. We like to claim that we know, and we label things as good or bad to our own detriment. In general, what we mean by good is something that we like, and bad is something that we don't. Is a promotion a good thing if it leads to an eventual divorce? Is getting fired bad if it leads to something better down the road? We want to think that we can understand these things from our limited viewpoint, but we need to admit that we don't know. God knows. God is the only one that gets to know. So let's stop putting ourselves in the place of God and instead trust that regardless of good or bad, He will make things right. Ecclesiastes 12:13 and 14 reaches the same conclusion. It says this: "The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for that is the whole duty of everyone. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil." The reason that the author doesn't ignore wisdom throughout the book is because wisdom is what ensures that you stay on the right path. Turning back to our blackjack analysis, wisdom is what helps you to have a winning game instead of a losing one. Now, is wisdom sufficient to overcome all of the bad luck that you will encounter in life? No. Is it enough to overcome death? No. But it will help to ensure that you reach the best result once those two factors are accounted for. Turn to God for answers. Follow His direction, and your path will be better on average than any alternative road. Being skillful, intelligent, wise, or wealthy will all make your life to some degree easier. But if you put your trust in any of those things, they will eventually fail you. Faith in God is the only path that leads to ultimate victory. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Altered Call podcast. You can reach me by email using alex@alteredcall.com, or you can visit the website for additional information.